everyone, my name is Alicia Jackson, licensed professional counselor, and welcome to my channel. Today we are reviewing Married at First Sight, Season 17, Episode 8. Here at this channel, we do a different type of therapeutic review. I want to make sure I'm emphasizing that, a different type of therapeutic review. Instead of jumping to conclusions or making assumptions about what we know, we get a little curious. And start to wonder, what's happening internally for these couples to explain why they're showing up the way they're showing up, right? And so we're utilizing this model called internal family systems. And if you want to know more about that model, please, I have a playlist that gives a lot of information about the model. And the reason why I do this disclosure at the beginning of my video is that I know sometimes people have expectations for me as a therapist to say what is right and what is wrong. And what I can say is what is harmful, right? I can say what is harmful, and at the same time, I know everything we do is because we are trying to protect ourselves. Every action we make, especially when we're in relationships with each other, romantic, family, friendships, we're doing it out of protection, right? And so the focus of my videos are to, again, get curious and wonder about what's happening. And I know that I may disappoint you guys, right? There are times I'm watching this because I'm a human being first, right? So I'm watching these episodes just like you, and there are times where they're doing things that upset me, that offend me, that I feel very passionate about that they should not do, right? Because of how it's impacting themselves or their partner. And when it comes to doing these reviews, I set my anger aside. To come from a place of curiosity. Not to say that I don't have the anger, not to say that I don't see their behavior as not okay. Oh yeah, I do. It happened during this episode, in fact. And at the same time, in order for us to really understand what's motivating our behavior, we need a place. We need a place that's safe. Anger and judgment, those things aren't safe, right? Because they're a threat of like who we are and a threat of our value. And so we have to set that aside a little bit to really, truly give these couples a fair shake and really understand what's happening. And I understand how that could be activating. So please know, if there's any time where you disagree, you feel like I should have been harder on somebody, think I should have really gave it to them, I understand that. I truly understand that, sincerely. And know that the purpose of these videos are for us to lean into our curiosity. That's the purpose. And in order for us to lean into curiosity, anger, frustration, annoyance really can't be present. We have to really wonder, like, what's happening? Because if we wonder from a place of anger, then it's like we already have an idea of what, they're just trying to do this because, right? Well, we don't know. We don't know. Even in these videos where I am tossing out what I'm feeling and thinking could be right because of my lens and understanding of how we work, I might be wrong, right? I might be wrong. And at the same time, it helps us to really understand that it's deeper than that. We are much more complex than we really understand and even give ourselves credit for. We can feel two opposite emotions about the same thing at the same time, right? And so that's really the purpose of these videos. And I hope that you're receiving this. And if not, I understand. Okay. So let's get started. First, we have Becca and Austin. Now, this is interesting, this couple, right? It really seems like, there's so much tentativeness in the room with them. They're enjoying themselves. They got the humor still happening, and there's still all this unspoken stuff going on, right? And so they are talking about what they need because they're at their shared apartment, right? And they're talking about, okay, what do we need to bring from our homes? We need plants, we need games, right? And they discuss their chores, their cleaning habits, and Becca says that she's really looking, right, for it to a deep dive into Austin instead of playing in the shallow pool. What does that tell you? She's tired of this. There's some here. A part of her is frustrated with not knowing more, right? A part of her is frustrated with not knowing more, and I'm wondering what she needs to do, right? Because her and Austin have agreed to take it slow, and I see too that they are moving towards having the hard conversations, right? Because they are working through their differences of religion, which we'll get to right when they speak with Pastor Cal. But they're working through that, so they are taking some steps into the water, and so hopefully Becca will be able to like hold the part of her that is like, we need to know right now, right? Hold that part of her, and take care of this part of her, right? Letting her know like, hey, I know this isn't at the pace that you want it to be, and that does suck, right? And at the same time, we're going to trust this situation and really move in a space and a pace that works the best for this relationship, right? And so Becca sees Austin's place, and it's really homey, right? It's really homey vibes. She likes the character of the house because she says she loves places that are like older and has like the creaks and the cricks in the house, and big windows and all the things. She's really impressed. She's really impressed at the home, and she also learns that Austin washes his clothes once a month, and she's like, whoa, as she washes her clothes once a week. I feel like that's one of those, like, right, in my opinion, this is a Alicia thing. I feel like that's something that's small, but it's something that every couple really has to work through, especially that's like living together. He did state that, well, seems like you like washing clothes more than I do, and at the same time I feel like they can probably work through this. Now, what does come up while they're at Austin's house is living arrangements after decision day. And he said, well, after decision day, if everything's still going great, I was thinking maybe I would move back into my house, you move into yours, and then we wait things out since we live close together. And then once the leases are done, then poof, we live together. And Becca says, well, I live, my lease is month to month, so you can move in with me and then we'll buy something together. And he's like, okay. There's something there, right? I don't know what's there. He did say that, he has a roommate, so that was his concern. I don't know how long his lease is at his home. I do hear like a current of like, ooh, potentially he doesn't like her as much as he's leading on to. We don't know yet. Austin is very kind of tight-lipped, right? He's tight-lipped, so we don't know much, right? And I wonder if there are some things that Becca is doing that Austin isn't having open communication with her about, that he maybe doesn't like, or that is a concern of his, right? But we don't know. I don't want to make, jump into conclusions about what this hesitation is, but it feels like it's more than just the lease thing, right? It feels more than that, but we don't know yet, right? And so they're having the meeting with Pastor Cal, and he talks about like, wow, how long did it take you all to connect? Because it seemed like it happened really natural. And they said, yeah, the first day we met, we've been this close. They've had, physical intimacy, but not anything going towards intercourse, right? And Austin said it just takes him a little bit longer time, and that was something even his friends said at the beginning of the season, that's something that just Austin likes to wait for, and he is a Christian, so it may be connected to his religious beliefs. We don't know, right? But that could be a factor. So they're waiting it out, right? And so Pastor Cal said the reason why we asked is just because it's a marker. I do have a part of me, as if you've watched my reviews from seasons prior, that is annoyed when Pastor Cal asks us that question. I'm just like, okay, Pastor Cal, why is that the first thing? Because yes, it's a marker. Physical intimacy plays a huge piece in a relationship, and it says a lot about a relationship, so I get it. And at the same time, these are people who just met literally a week ago, and I understand that the pace is different and all the things, but really, like, ooh, how's the communication going? Because that's what this couple needs to think about and talk about actually all of them need to be talking about communication, like from the rip. That's the first thing. How are you hearing each other? Do you feel heard? Do you are you able to talk through conflicts? What conflicts have come up, right? Even if it's just like, oh, you left your socks on the floor, like anything to that degree to really get a temperature of where the couple is. Communication can really give you a great temperature versus like physical intimacy. Anyway, so they also began to talk about children, right? They talked about children, and Becca said that she's open to take this adventure with her partner. And they also discussed religion, right? And so that's a place where they don't really align. Yes, Becca is agnostic and Austin is a Christian, right? And so Becca has some anxiety around that because she says she hasn't been with a Christian even when she was Jewish or identified as Jewish, because they tend to want to convert her, and she doesn't want that, and she's concerned that that's going to happen with Austin. And so Pastor Cal said, well, meet Austin, right? And I'm like, well, did we ask Austin? I'm like, maybe they didn't show that in the footage that we saw, but I didn't see where Austin said he wasn't going to try to convert her. Maybe he said that. I'm wondering, like, that if that could have been even just a question that was posed. Like, Austin, I'm wondering if there's any part of you that would want Becca to be a Christian, like somewhere down the line, like to have the conversation. Because I saw Pastor Cal doing was Becca said, here's my concern, and he was like, there, your concern's not real, basically, right? As long as you both have similarities, you like love, you believe in love and kindness, you both do. See, okay, you believe in the same things. Yes. I also feel like in order for us to really see how you can work through the conflict, where are the areas where you feel and you believe opposing things? And is it something that you can be okay with, right? That's where this can really grow through the differences, right? You say, hey, I want our children to go to church, and Becca's like, I don't want our children to go to church. Okay, so let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about it, because that's going to help them further down the line versus you believe in love and kindness and you believe in love and kindness. So, okay, love and kindness. I mean, who doesn't believe in love and kindness? I don't think there's anybody on the planet that's like, go hate. Nobody's doing that. And so I don't understand Pastor Cal's like intervention in that moment. The core beliefs thing, I hear you. And at the same time, we're not really dealing with the issue at the moment. So tell me, have you guys talked about your different beliefs and the things that are opposing? Have you talked about what you want as a family and like the values that you want to use to build a family? No? Oh, okay. So like I would encourage them to have those conversations with each other and see how those go, right? Because again, they just met a week ago. And so I see more Pastor Cal trying to protect the connection that's working, which I get Pastor Cal, because it doesn't look like many other connections are. And at the same time, in order to really sustain a relationship, you got to talk about the things, right? And so this is the one thing that they're giving themselves permission to talk about, but it's not really happening. Even Austin said, well, okay, after we reassured Becca, love and kindness, everything's fine. And Austin said, it's something that I got to work through in my own time. I want to know more about that, right? Like, as I say, okay, Austin, is this something you feel comfortable sharing right now? And because this is a great time too, right? Or is this something you want to do maybe on your own? What do you need from Becca as you consider these things? Like, exploring that, because I see Austin being a person that tries to deal with things internally and like try to make himself be okay with things that he's not okay with. And that usually doesn't work. Usually after a while, the part of you that's not okay keeps knocking at the door and trying to get your attention and tell you like, hey, we're not okay with that. And then it's either like it turns into resentment or you explode, so having these conversations will be great, even in this session with Pastor Cal. But it doesn't seem like Pastor Cal, when it comes to the way he counsels, and it's it's no shade to him because he's not really a therapist, right? He's like a spiritual advisor, right? That he seems to not he seems to bypass curiosity and just jump straight to the resolution. Like, okay, this is the problem, it's fixed, right? And it's like, whoa, wait a second. Slow it down. We moving way too fast, right? Instead of kind of getting a little bit more curious about what they're really feeling, what they're really thinking. Tell me what happened when you were trying to be converted. What did that feel like to you? And what we need to know that. We really need to know that in order to really address it. Instead of putting a, oh, there, everything's gonna be fine kind of band-aid on it. Because that's usually what those interventions kind of look like from him, unfortunately. So we shall see how this goes. Like I always say, throughout their joining together and their journey to, right, living in the shared apartment. Next we have Emily and Brennan. Whew. All right, everybody. We're in this. Okay, let's go for it. All right, so they are in a shared apartment, right? They're here in their shared apartment, and Brennan, the way he comes to this conversation is so interesting. I don't know if you saw this, but I'll tell you from my eyes what I saw, right? So they're on the couch, and she's like, right, so what we're gonna, how are we gonna work this? And he's like, in the mornings, I'm thinking about coming here, to do my calls, and, then I go to my apartment because, traffic, and he's like, I gotta go home tonight because, I gotta get the apartment, my place tidied up, and I'm thinking, maybe I'll spend a few days there, and, then I'm feeling ready to come back out, I'll move in. And Emily's completely blindsided by this. Completely blindsided by this. Now, that is a example of someone that's not using direct communication, not speaking clearly about what they're meaning and thinking. They're just like, I'm telling you things that are happening, which is like a passive communication. I'm telling you things that are happening and not really telling you directly what's happening at all. And so Emily's just like picking up little signs, right? Like she's looking at the stars and like the words he's putting together and like connecting the dots. And which is, like a part of me is just like pained, to see that for her. Now Brennan stated that on the honeymoon, he noticed that he was starting to get drained. Okay. And he says that he needs to take a couple days to himself and see why. Okay, that would have been wonderful to communicate to Emily. And at the same time, for whatever reason, he didn't feel safe. Now, again, I'm connecting the dots myself, right, on what's been happening the episodes before, right? We've heard where from other wives, they said that they saw that Brennan kind of has kind of a different demeanor off camera. His parents say that they have seen his temper, right? He can have a temperament. And so I said this, I think, in the review before, that usually when there's a harsh anger kind of voice, there's also one that's not speaking up. And we see the one that's like not speaking up, and it seems like he doesn't know a middle ground of really how to communicate what he's feeling. And he struggles throughout the entire episode. Well, lack of communication causes harm, right? And that's definitely what's happening to Emily. And we've seen it even through the things that he hasn't communicated, right? Like not really being concerned when someone's cutting half of her hair out of her scalp or her wrist being harmed. And in this moment, right? Not really. Like he said, a part of him, right, feels bad, wants to protect her, which I do believe that's there. And at the same time, it seems like he's also unaware of the fact that he is impacting her still now, right? And that's also happening. Okay, so she's waking up. I think she wakes up it looks like she's waking up in her space. It feels that way. It doesn't look like the shared apartment from the cam that she used, but she says she woke up without Brennan, and she was feeling sad and kind of reluctant to jumping towards the day, but wanting to go for it. And so now Emily is in Brennan's space. She's in Brennan's space and they're doing the whole, hey, look at the place I live. Let's check it out. And Emily is intrigued. She's like, oh, look at this. Oh, this is so nice. Oh, I didn't expect it to be so homey. Oh, look at this. Oh, and I could probably like, so she's offering up things like that she likes and then also saying like, oh, and I have this, right? And he is shut down. He's completely shut down. And Emily's picking up on this. And that causes her to be very confused. Very confused. She's just like, what is going on? Because again, he's not communicating where he is at all or why he is where he is. And understandably so, he did say that he doesn't know why, right? Sometimes we have emotions, we get annoyed, we get irritated, and we like wonder like, why did I have such a big response to that? Like what was that happening? And especially this is a person he has just met. Like I'm giving all that in context, and at the same time I feel like that is still something like he can name. He can name and say, hey, this is such a new experience for me, right? A part of me wants to be so committed to this process and give my all because that's what I've seen my parents do and I really want to have the life they have. And also part of me is like really trying to understand why I'm having all these emotions in this process and understand what I'm really feeling, right? And I want to work through them. So I'm not really showing up as my best self and you deserve better. And I'm sorry that this is where I am right now. I'm really trying. Like I'm really trying. But Brennan's not really being that forthcoming. He has a part of him that definitely withholds information to protect himself and others. Because he also is feeling like he's protecting her, but he's also protecting himself because he doesn't want to look like maybe people from past seasons or, what have you, right? And so as they're going, right, they're going through his house, his place, she's complimenting, right? And sharing her preferences. And Brennan is saying, yep. Emily's pulling filler questions out there, right? To say, okay, well, tell me, how do you foresee this living situation going? And he's like, well, took the time away and I'm really glad to, have time to myself. So it's like, that was a dig. I don't know if he didn't mean that as a dig, if he was just really like, again, not being aware of her feelings in that moment and just saying the dig or intentionally digging, but either way, it was a dig. And yeah, so we'll revisit it in a few days. She's completely in the dark. She's completely in the dark, right? And so that's going to only make her mind go, what in the world is happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? And start questioning because there's vague information that he's providing, and again, not even adding the extra information of saying like, I'm not even aware of what's happening for me, right? And so they meet with Pastor Cal and he comes to visit, and Emily has this part of her that uses we speak meaning like, okay, we decided to take things slow, right? We decided to take a moment away and then come back. And when Brennan is the one that's making all the decisions, she was even using this we speak on the honeymoon as well, right? And I'm wondering, right? So I feel like Emily has this part of her that's kind of feisty because I've seen it at the after party where she will say the things. And it's also like she has this part of her that's like quiet and watchful and also like, okay, we'll just go with it, right? That part is there too. And both of them are, again, coming out of protection, ways to protect herself. And we're seeing them definitely in this session with Pastor Cal. As even Pastor Cal is kind of miffed as the language she's using. And it's like very nice. She's using niceties, right? Like she's putting, sugarcoating it and kind of like meandering around and like, well, we figured and we thought and we could and we may. And Pastor Cal's like, hold on, just say it. We don't need the other stuff, right? Just say what you are needing to say. And both of them struggle in this, both of them. And Emily's saying that she's feeling insecure. She's feeling insecure in the state of their relationship, and it started in the honeymoon. And she talked about this in the after party too, that the night that they got married, Brennan initiated them kissing and making out, but ever since then they really haven't had a lot of touching. And she said even in their shower, like, she didn't really want to wear bathing suits, but he asked for that. And so she's letting him take the lead, but he's not really moving the needle forward, right? And so he comes out and he says that he doesn't have any like romantic feelings for her. He's been trying to develop them, and he doesn't feel like motivated or inspired to move, towards her. And Pastor Cal's trying to get like an understanding of what he's saying. So like he's saying, so you don't want to touch her, and I'm like, oh, Pastor Cal. And so he's like, well, that's kind of a a hurtful way to say that, but yeah, right. And I'm wondering what's happening in Emily's brain. Like she's got a poker face happening in this moment. Like you can see that her mind is like, what is he saying? Like, okay, I knew it was something, right? She's like, I knew it was something, because she said that it changed so much. It changed so much throughout the honeymoon, and how he would compliment the other women, but wouldn't compliment her at all. And I'm just like, oh, heartbreak. Heartbreak. Now, Brennan did state that when things are going well in their relationship, or they're having good moments, he does, touch her. And at the same time, it's not inspiring any feelings, any romantic feelings to develop or to spark for Emily, right? And so Emily says, well, I guess this is a step in the right direction, right? And Pastor Cal calls him out for having his guard up. And there's a part that appreciates that. I feel like just bringing it to his awareness too, like, this silence that you're using right now in your relationship is not just protecting, you say you're protecting Emily, but you're also protecting yourself now. And I'm wondering if you know that, and what you fear will happen if you do open up and share with her. And I feel like that's something that needs to happen in this moment. Like, Brennan, what do you fear? What do you fear if you really open up about what you're really feeling and thinking about this relationship? What do you fear will happen? Well, I feel like I'll look like a jerk on TV. But I feel like that's what's happening right now. This wall that he's putting up is protection. And I'm wondering for him what he fears will happen if he opens up. If he opens up to Emily to share how he's really feeling. How he's really feeling. Right? And does he fear that if he tells her, then she's going to get upset, and it may cause him to like lose control of his emotions, right? There could be so many reasons why, and we need to know to really get a clear understanding of what's happening, right? What we do know is that Brennan's actions are harmful, right? They're harmful. We know that. And Emily is saying she feels still hopeful in this relationship. And a part of me is like, okay, wondering what is she seeing that we're not seeing. So they are talking and debriefing after Pastor Cal leaves, and Emily states that she believes that Brennan is self-sabotaging this relationship. She asked him just flat out, I need to know, are you attracted to me or not? And he refuses to answer the question. She says, well, by refusing to answer the question, you've answered the question. And he said, well, no, not really. I'm just not saying anything. And it's like, oh, Brennan, like, again, I feel like he's too worried about defending himself to really see what he's doing in this moment. Because yes, without answering this question, you have answered the question that you don't see her as attractive. That's the only thing that's going to be the likelihood of a conclusion of that response, unless he provides clarity, which he's not doing. He's not doing. Brennan said that he is still in this relationship, but he's just not at 100%, but he's willing to try. And that's also another thing that makes me be like, I don't know, Brennan. And so I want to know more. Brennan gives us very little information about himself. Very similar to Austin. Very little information. We don't know much, right, about him. And so as the season goes on, I'm hoping we'll get to learn a little bit more about his story. But not being 100% in a marriage can be challenging, right? Because one, our 100% is going to look different from day to day, right? And so I'm wondering what him trying is going to look like, right? What is Brennan trying going to look like? Is what he's doing right now trying? Tell me what's happening, right? And so he said that he was drained. He's trying to replenish himself, and at the same time, I would like to know, like, what if he, once he has his moments to reflect and really sit on, like, why was I feeling drained? What happened that maybe started to cause me to feel drained, or what, did I have any big responses to anything that Emily did? So to have those conversations, like, oh man, I noticed that maybe I need some moments where I need to, like, be by myself, like have moments where I'm introverted and I need some moments, like whatever he's noticing for himself, so that he can really speak on it. I need, this relationship needs, and definitely Emily needs, more communication, clear communication about why he's showing up the way he is right now. And Emily's in tears because she's saying she did not expect this to happen at all. And I'm going to say the same thing, right? We thought Emily was going to be maybe really struggling because this is her first big relationship. And then turn out she's actually trying and pushing, and the gentleman, her husband, who wanted a lifelong relationship, is struggling, right? Okay, didn't expect either of these things to happen, and wondering if they open the lines of communication, what could happen. I'm also wondering, like, what's clogging the lines of communication between Brennan and Emily. What is he afraid to say? What is he afraid will happen if he talks? We shall see. But I am not as hopeful as Emily is for the start of this relationship, or the seeing it through, right, throughout the 8 weeks. I'm not as hopeful. And it's a little discouraging because I feel like it is really like last season kind of playing out again, where most couples were like friend zoned at the honeymoon. It's like very, very similar. And so this is pretty sad. It's pretty sad. Next we have Cameron and Claire. And so Cameron and Claire, of course, like the others, they're talking about bringing their lives together and their concerns and what potentially could happen, all the things, right? And Claire said she is kind of concerned about the unknown, right? For the day-to-day things, like, ooh, what are the morning routines going to be like? What are the hiccups going to happen in those spaces? And Cameron said, I'm really not as worried. Not as worried. He said he was in a relationship where his partner's parents were living with them, and that makes me have a lot of questions, right? Like, I'm wondering, like, was she taking care of them, or what was happening that was to be? Did she, like, come from, like, more of a collective culture where families tend to cohabitate like that, like intergenerational, right, families? Wondering, right? But he said he's concerned about, on her end, potentially, like, him doing things that are going to annoy her. And she said, well, that's probably going to happen, and I'm going to tell you. And we know Claire is definitely going to be very open and honest. I'm hoping that she's going to have more grace in her words. I get a sense that Cameron is more tender than he lets on. All the humor, right, that he leads with. And at the same time, I get a sense that he's kind of tender. And we see a little bit of that when Cameron is showing Claire his house. And so Cameron says that he is more inclined to, instead of talking about it directly, to see how bad it gets. And I'm like, oh boy, really? Okay. And so again, of course, I want to know more about that. Like, tell me, what is it? Like, what is it that you've seen that's benefited you by waiting to see how bad it gets, right? And Claire comes in with no, that's a horrible way to deal with things. It's like, oh no, that's a horrible way to do things. Yeah, to deal with things. It's not proactive. It's not. Yeah, and I understand. I understand what she's saying. There's truth in it, right? There's truth in it. But just, there's a part of me that wants her her to potentially just take a beat. Like, just take a beat. I feel like there is like correction constantly happening, right? Like maybe there's a part of her that's like constantly looking for like, well, that's going to be an issue, and that's going to be an issue, and that's going to be an issue, and we got to get on top of that, and we got to get on top of that, and we got to get on top of that. Like, I hear her, and that makes sense, yes. And at the same time, it seems to be like the energy she's in constantly when she's with Cameron. And I would, I think this is the part of her that she says is like really serious. I want to see them have more fun, right? Like throwing paint on each other. Like continue to have moments like that, because I have a feeling, right, that's going to be a little it's going to be stressful for her to constantly be like, well, what about this? And we got to think about this, and we got to think about that. And with him being such a kind of easygoing, that's the energy he lives in, like easygoing, fun, right? That's going to be potentially a place where they collide. And of course, again, Claire says that that's not good. That's a terrible way to do things. And he says, well, he likes to see what his limit is. And I'm like, I wonder, like, are you doing that because you like to see how far you can take, or how much you can take? Are you like in some type of endurance test for yourself, or even you want to see how much the other person can take, or how much you can get away with? I'm wondering, like, what's the testing the limits? Just curious, like I want to know. But for him, the next day he was joking with Claire about the dishes being in the sink. I guess that was like a conversation they had beforehand. But she said, hey, I'll get to it. And Claire visits Cameron's space. It looks like he lives on a lower level in a house, or something like a suite or something like that. That's what it feels like. There's lots of spiders and spider traps, in which Claire is like, I will absolutely not be staying here. And he has like, some homey feels. She gets to see like all of the races and the like sports activities that he participated in. She's like, oh, I didn't know you did that. He said, well, all you had to do was ask. And there was a joke there, but I know that they used that as a clip to say dun dun dun, tension, right? And at the same time, I'm wondering if there was something there, right, where he's wanting some effort from her, right? Kind of leaning to the big, huge, like, bouquet of flowers as a way to say, hey, I'm reaching, I'm doing this. Like, he wants some of that coming his way too. Like, oh, maybe cooking his favorite breakfast in the morning, right? Or like, hey, let's go on a bike ride together. Something that's like she's leaning into him. And I don't see much of that, right? And so Cameron goes to visit Claire's apartment, and her dog is not warming up to him, and so he's a little concerned about that. But he said he likes dogs. He said as long as they're not annoying. But the dog was eating, right? And so Claire has a bike, and Cameron giving her a hard time because the tires are flat on her bike. And he discovers that Claire is Catholic. And so he's like, oh yeah, you told me you were faithful, but I didn't know that you were Catholic. And so she said yes after the death of her brother. Then she really started to lean more into her faith and get really serious about that. But she said, I am open, right? I'm open to, because I know you're not that religious, and that's okay. Like, that's okay for me, but just know that I am, right? There's an energy around that, if I sense that it was like, there's a part of her that is really like, no, this is important to me, right? I respect you, but it's like it seemed forceful, right? And so I want to know more about that energy, like what that is. It felt, I don't know. There's a part of me that's questioning if that's really how she feels, right? Or if there's like, it's something like she's having to protect her faith in the past, right? Something's there. There's a lot of energy around that, and I'm just wondering, right, what's happening for her internally, if she knows in that moment, right, where she's like, well, it was just like really big, it felt like, right? And so Cameron and Claire are sitting with Dr. Pepper, and Cameron stated that on the honeymoon they really struggled in the area of physical connection, And Claire agreed. She said that she has a block up, and she's had that in the past, right? If she doesn't feel it emotionally connected to someone, that she's also gonna struggle, right? Because she needs to have that in order to physically connect with someone. And Cameron said he actually just even appreciated the fact that she opened up and shared that with him, right? And Dr. Pepper talked about physical connection and touch, and saying, hey, you guys could just hold hands, and it doesn't have to be too big, just something light. And Claire said she'd be open to do that. I also would too. I mean, I don't know if this is a thing that they do off camera, but just even exploring people's relationship with touch, because touch can be an activating thing, and it can be something that too people are more protected around, right? Depending on their relationship with touch, if there's been unwanted touching and things like that. So I really, there's a part of me that wishes like that conversation would be opened up a little bit more, right? Instead of, again, because Dr. Pepper, similarly to Pastor Cal, just kind of jump in with like conclusion sometimes, and or let's fix it. Here's the, okay, just hold hands. Right? Or what was that last season was watch Driving Miss Daisy. That's what she said. Okay. Instead of just like, let's have a more open conversation. Let's not focus on you two touching, but just the subject of touch in general. Like, what has your relationship been like with touch from, throughout your life? And let's look at that, and that will really help us, right, to really understand. I know they also discussed religion, and Cameron stated that he was raised Christian, right, and he was kicked out of a church because he stood up for something that at 10, and he said that a 10-year-old needed to stand up for. Yeah, right, so he was defending, even though there was a part of him, right, that was defending this act, right? And so I want to know more about young Cameron. Young Cameron seems to have a lot of like a fire. He has a lot, and we don't know about him, right? We don't know much about him, young Cameron. We just know about Cameron since he's been here in the States, right? The bike riding, the bike fixer, Cameron. We're not getting to know about this one that was, in the past. It seems like maybe he's trying to cut himself away from that and maybe just like push that down, right? Because that Cameron was also in therapy before, remember? So it's like, I want to know more about younger Cameron, because it also seems like younger Cameron maybe went through some things, right? And been through a lot of things. And so, and I understand what, right? They just met a week ago. He may not be completely open to doing that. And at the same time, they're married, right? And so them opening up to each other and really sharing their stories can really be helpful for them to really understand each other. And so I want to know more about that, right? And so Cameron did state that he feels like religion really isn't something that gives children what they need in order to succeed in the world, right? That's a belief that a part of him has. And Claire says that she completely disagrees, but she respects. I disagree, but I respect, right? Is that the same energy, right? No? Yes? There's something there. I'm wondering, like, for you, what do you believe is there? I don't know. I really don't know. It feels like something's there. It does. I wonder how she feels around disagreement, right? It may not even be religion, just around disagreement, right? It's like, I have to say I respect it, even though I disagree. Like, it's something there with that. So I'm curious to see how they're going to work through this. They seem to be like in this jokey place still kind of friendly, camaraderie type of space. Not really leaning into their romantic connection. I would like to see some more romantic gestures from like both of them to like lean into each other. But that's not happening as of yet. But we shall see. Last, we have Lauren and Orion. Oh my goodness. Whew. Oh my goodness. All right. Here we go. Here we go. We ready? Okay. So they are coming, right? This is when, after the meeting they had with Pastor Kyle, right? This huge meeting where he's refusing to let go of her rude, crude joke, right? And I feel so hurt for Lauren. I just feel so hurt for her. And so she's not wearing the ring, okay? And Orion is wearing his. And Claire notices this, so she's like, I'm confused, because Claire knows the tea because Lauren and Claire are close, right? And so everybody's talking about moving together, and Claire is like, so what are you two going to do? Which I thought was a very interesting thing to do in front of everyone. But Claire does it, and Lauren says, well, I don't know, because we're having irreconcilable differences right now. And which I felt was accurate description of what their situation is per Orion's words just a moment ago. And Orion says, well, no, that's not necessarily true. We're just having conversations about things and subjects that we haven't had before, and they're a bit challenging and they're a little murky right now. And so we're just trying to work through them. And once we come to a conclusion, we'll, before we talk about it with you guys, we're going to, talk about it, talk about it with ourselves first and really get understanding. And I'm like, Now, what I do know is that they stated that after they had that session with Pastor Cal last week, that they had even more intervention from the production and their spouses, and to talk about how to work through conflict and forgiveness, and especially things that are related to interracial couples, right? And so, I don't know if Orion's like, he's in a place where, I'm just trying to consider everything they said, and so maybe not, right? But if that's where he is, then he needs to communicate that to Lauren, right? Because she's going off of what he said, and especially because she's like, he already said that he was over it once and then backtracked again, right? So there's a part of her that is probably just saying, like, he said it's done, like, doesn't want to keep putting her heart through the yo-yo, right? And it's possible, right, that Orion's got 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And what he keeps doing to Lauren throughout this episode is like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And it's so unfair to her. It is so unfair to her. And a part of me wants Orion to say, hey, let's take a moment, like he did, right? He said, let's take a moment and kind of sort through things and have a fresh start, right? If that's what he was really feeling. Or maybe be more honest, because I don't even know if he was saying have a reset, but maybe we just need to take a moment and really think through what just happened and really come to a conclusion after we've really given it some time to process everything about what we want to do with the marriage moving forward. If he was in a place where he was like feeling persuaded, feeling like the counseling he was getting from the experts and the production people, right, was something that he was going to consider, but them having a real conversation about it. But I don't feel like that communication is something that is Orion's strong suit, again, because conflict is distressing to him. I really truly believe that, and I feel like because of that, he doesn't know how to properly articulate himself, stand on his truth, and because he has these challenges, he causes harm, right? Throughout this marriage and throughout this episode, right? Because he tells Lauren that, hey, we're going to do a full reset. They have pizza in the shared apartment and they go their separate ways. And so she's saying she's feeling jerked around. She's feeling completely jerked around. And Lauren asks him, like, is it really true? Like, are you believing that we can do a full reset? Like, tell me if that's where you are. Because what I'm hearing, like, a part of her is questioning this, doesn't trust it, because this has happened before, right? This is not the second time. The first time, yeah, everything's great. Yeah, all's forgiven. And then because they have a conflict moment, I feel like that, again, activated, oh, no, I'm really not over this. And so Orion takes, I think, 1 day, right, and then texts Lauren and says that he wants a divorce. Well, she said that the text she got in the mirror, because this was her confessional, that he said that he wants to continue with the divorce, right? He wants to stop the marriage, but continue with the process. What? that was so confusing to me. And even that moment, it's like this man clearly does not know what he wants. He's all over, right? I feel like he's got two parts of him that are warring with each other, and he's trying to like even try to find a middle ground between the two of them, or in it. He's in either one of them, and he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to do. And that's not fair to Lauren. It's just not fair. And so they have a conversation with Dr. Pia. Now, at the after party, he said that he really didn't want to have this conversation with her at all. And he said that this session lasted for 4 hours. I can't imagine having a session last for 4 hours. I could not, especially one of this magnitude, right? And so Dr. Pia asked, okay, so tell me when's the last time you both saw each other and spoke to each other. And so Orion said, well, we were trying to connect, but times didn't work out. And she said, no, that's not what happened. I don't think there was a lot of trying and effort put in on making a time, because he sent me times. He said, let's meet up. I told him when I was available. And then he sent the text of, let's just get a divorce. And so Lauren talks about how these mixed messages are impacting her. She's feeling like just like a ping pong, ball. She's feeling like just moving back and forth. And her heart is connected to this. She has established genuine feelings for Orion, and she's heartbroken. And instead of addressing that, right? Instead of addressing how his actions have impacted her, he jumps to defend what he was saying or trying to communicate. He's like, well, when I was talking about the future, it really wasn't the future. Like, our relationship was just like the future as a whole. And Dr. Pia showed her annoyance on her face, and she was like, what's happening? Okay, no. And Dr. Pia kind of just like cut him off a little bit and said, Orion, today, when you came in, did you know that you were going to get a divorce? Like, that's what you had, like your intention to end this relationship today. And he said yes. He said he is heartbroken. He is heartbroken. He can't handle Lauren's reactions. And this is a part for me that is kind of it's upsetting, because this is how anger is often scapegoated in a relationship, because the hurt underneath it is never addressed, right? So, and I'm glad that even Lauren was able to communicate that. She said, and she even owned it. She owned it in the same sentence. She said, I see you. Like, I see and understand what you're saying, right? And at the same time, in order for me to have a reaction, there had to be an action, right, that happened. And not to say, again, like anger is justifiable. Not saying that at all. Saying that also needs to be a part of the equation. The fact that he is very inconsistent in his communication, that he's oftentimes worried about distressing himself instead of being honest and standing foot in his truth, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's going to cause conflict or right, to say what you mean and mean what you say. That is something that Orion struggles with. It's not a skill set he has. And because of that he's not going to be able to navigate any relationship effectively without being able to speak his truth, right? And really stand on it. It's going to be really frustrating to be able to navigate a relationship not knowing if he's being honest or not. And so I'm really grateful that Dr. Pia brought in the topic of protection and defense mode, because that's what these two have been in, right? Rightfully so. Again, this show, it is built, right? It's like ripe for the picking for us to really look at the different protection that's happening, because this is a very stressful situation, right? And so both of them, right? Lauren's anger protects her in this situation. It protects the part of her that feels hurt and rejected and betrayed, right? All of those things. And Orion, the way he protects himself is by shifting blame, right? He has a part of him that does that. He has a part of him that doesn't own up to what he's saying. He has a part of him that is very reluctant to speak the truth. He has a part of him that flip-flops, right? Just kind of goes back and forth like, no, I didn't mean that. Oh, yes, I did. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. It's like, whew. And he has a part of him that flees, right? So it seems like, again, the way that Lauren protects herself is coming from an area of like hyper arousal, which is like fight mode, and the way that Orion tends to protect himself is like from like a hypo arousal, like a freeze mode, right? That's that fawn area where like like quiet. I don't know what to say, right? And also flight, right? And Lauren does do some fawning too. We see that towards the end, which was just so heartbreaking when she asks for forgiveness or apologizes yet again for something that she's already apologized for, right? Multiple times that he refuses to grant her grace on. And so I'm glad that Dr. Pia brings this in, because she stated that they both need to extend each other more grace, right? And Lauren said that she's already forgiven him, and Orion says he's not sure. He's not sure if he can forgive her. And it's hard, because I wonder how much grace Orion has received before Lauren, right? We know Lauren has given Orion lots of grace, right? And I'm wondering before Lauren what Orion's experience with grace has been, if it's even something that he trusts or even is aware that can be, right? And yes, maybe even intellectually I'm talking like from a heart space, like knows that, because I get the sense like that it's not something that like sits well with him. Like sometimes we know like, okay, yes, I know I need to give myself more grace, right? But then when it comes to the action of it, it's like, oh, you have a part of you that's hypercritical, a part of you that feels like you have to do everything right and you can't make mistakes, or if you make mistakes, that means you're a bad person or you're a failure, right? Like, so we have these parts of us that have these ideas and have this language and how they talk to us. And so intellectually, yes, we know I need to give myself grace, and instinctively and in our heart and in our being, something else is happening. And so I'm wondering, right, internally, is there grace here inside of Orion? It really feels like it's not, because he's not able to give it. Because if you're able to experience it, if you experience the grace, and that's been something that has been a part of like your upbringing, and like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay, right, to take accountability and you making a mistake and you hurting someone. If you own it and you do better, right, it's not taken away from your value. It's not taken away from who you are as a human being. All those things. If that's not learned and practiced, then it's so challenging. It's so challenging to be able to give it to someone. I agree with him and what he said at the after party when Keisha asked him if he feels like he was ready for marriage or was ready for marriage. He said no, and that was like one of the things I said. Yes, that's correct. Yes, you are you are correct, Orion. You are not ready yet. He has a lot of work to do, right? He has a lot of work to do. And so even Dr. Pia, she inquired, like, what is it around the rigidity around this issue? And there was silence, because I feel like he doesn't know. He said that he was in his head a lot, and I want to know more about what that means. That's what he said at the after party. He was like, I was just so in my head. I'm like, yeah, what was that like? What was going around in your head? Like, what words were coming up? What were you feeling? What were you thinking in that moment? Like, if I do this, what will happen, right? So I feel like it was great that Dr. Pia pointed it out, and I also wanted to see, too, again, Orion, what would you fear will happen if you gave Lauren grace? What will you fear will happen, right? So she's getting curious about why the rigidity is here, but even more, like, not having the right question of like, hey, what do you fear will happen? Whenever we have a part of us that has like some like rigid boundaries, there's a reason why that is, and there's fear. That's a fear-based response there. And Dr. Peel was right. It is a control mechanism. It's a way that he's protecting himself in this moment. And she did call him out on it. And he, at first he said, I'm not trying to control the situation by saying I want a divorce. And I said, oh, yeah. I think sometimes we really do have a negative connotation to the C word. You may have heard me say this in seasons prior. No, wherever there's pain, there's control, right? Whenever we've been hurt, we're going to make sure it never happens again, right? We have a part of us that comes in to proactively protect the pain, right? And so if he's in a situation where he's feeling like, if he's threatened by Lauren's anger per se, right? Again, we don't know what's happening because it seems like even he's not aware of what's happening, right? But if that's the thing, right? And him seeing that just makes him say like, no, I can't, right? I don't know how to handle conflict. I don't know how to handle conflict well, right? And he may not even have the wherewithal of that either. It seems like grace is an issue, communication is an issue, past traumas are an issue. These are things that Orion has to deal with, right? And so once Orion said that yes, he wants to move along with the divorce, that is what he wants, and Lauren was asked, what do you want? And Lauren said, it doesn't matter what I want. And Dr. Pia said, no, it actually does. It does matter. And I really loved Lauren's statement. It just touched my heart so much, because she said she is in a place, right, where she wants to stick with it, give grace to her partner, and really be committed to a relationship. And she is wanting a partner that's going to meet her the same way. And that's choosing her in that moment, right? It's choosing what she wants. Yes, she wants marriage, but she wants it with somebody who's going to meet her where she is too, and it hurt. It really hurt when Dr. Pia, right, posed this question of, hey, is this something that we can work through? Is this something we really can work through to really see it? Because there's no perfect relationship, or you're going to have harm that happens, and you're going to have to give each other forgiveness. Is this something, and this is something that I really see that, can be applied, like grace can be applied to this. Can you work through it? And there was some silence, and then it felt like there was even like that uncertainty there inside of Lauren, and she was like, it's okay. If you just say you don't, like, if you don't want to be with me, that's okay. Just say it. It won't hurt my feelings. And oh, my heart. Because that was even a method of protection just then. Like, the rejection has been so much for her throughout the honeymoon, and even to now. It's like, we're on, we're off, we're on, we're off. And if she has experienced rejection in the past too, like, that's going to be just even more, right? Impact onto the pain that she's experienced before. And so this protection comes in to be like, I'm okay. If that's what if you don't want me, I'm okay. Right. And I just, my heart, I am grateful. I'm grateful in how Lauren showed up in this episode for her by not letting her anger be scapegoated, by speaking for what she wants, right? Choosing marriage, but not this marriage, right? And I'm also grateful that Dr. Pia was able to be clear with Orion as to what she saw. I feel like Dr. Pia is a really great asset to Married at First Sight. I really would love if they had more than one like trained therapist on staff to really give these couples these supports, because again, this is like the second season in a row where a lot of friend zoning has been happening, or big conflict right after the honeymoon. And so then it's like, now this show is long. This show stretch out these out. We're going to be still in May and June talking about these couples, and they've already made decisions, it seems like. And so it'll be interesting to see how these episodes go, knowing that we already have two couples. One that didn't make it down the altar, and one that ended right after the honeymoon. And so then it will also be interesting to see how Emily and Brennan do, right? It's just so unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. You tell me your thoughts and feelings about this episode. It was such a you know, again, another hard episode to watch. I know people have a lot of strong feelings about Orion being on the after party, which makes sense, right? That's there, right? Because of how he showed up. Also, too, I think it was also important to mention too that Keisha stated that Brennan has been invited to the after party many times, and he only came once and hasn't come back again. And I feel like we don't know what his reasons for not coming. And at the same time, it's like, what's going on? Like, are you a part of this? Are you really here? Are you really present? Are you showing up? And Emily stated that, after their meeting with Pastor Callis, she was crying like that. Brennan didn't even come to like console her. Like, this is a pattern for him, with not helping her when she's in distress. And so I just, I'm hoping that Emily is able to really find her footing and stand her ground with Brennan. And we see in the previews for the next episode that her friends definitely do. And so we continue to see with the remaining couples how things go. Whew. If you're still with us, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, be cool, be calm, be centered. Peace.